Hi everyone, it's Wednesday, June the 3rd, and it's about 6:30, and this is my video number 265. It's my closing comment on today's market, and for lack of a better title, I think we're going to go with Will We Ever Have Another Down Day? The stock market was kind of a split affair, with the Dow running solidly ahead, mostly on the back of Boeing, which was up almost $20, which is the equivalent of over $120 of Dow points. We had the NASDAQ up the least at plus 74.53 or 0.78, S&P 4206 up 1.36. The Russell, also a strong day, up 33.88 or 2.39, and the lowly Dow Jones Transports was the big winner again, up 305.89 or roughly 3.35. That one has a long way to go to catch up. Market internals were pretty good. On the New York Stock Exchange, they were 4-to-1 advances, and the volume was up slightly today. Over on the NASDAQ, it was barely 2-to-1 up, so not quite as strong. 10 of the 11 sectors in the S&P were higher, the leaders being financials, energy, and industrials, and healthcare bringing up the rear and lower. We had a fair amount of economic news today. ADP came out with job loss numbers of minus 2.76 million, which was versus an expected down 5.9 million. Better than expected, not horrendous, unless, of course, you happen to be one of those 2.75 million people who don't have a job. ISM non-manufacturing came in at 45.4 versus what was expected of 44. That's also a little better, but the 50 line is the split, and even though we were 45.4, doesn't really say much. This was the third month down below 50. Oil was higher following a decline in the weekly crude inventories, so that helped a bit. Airlines were helped a bit by the Orange Emperor's threat to not allow any Chinese airline flights into the United States. I'm sure that that'll work out really well when they cancel ours also, but I don't think he thinks in more than one dimension. Lyft had a pretty good day, closed 34.44, up 276 or 8.7% on a 20% increase in rides for the month of May. That's, a substantial gain, 20%. However, to drill down a little, you find that what they actually had was a 70% decline year over year. Zoom managed to shake off the realistic move that it had yesterday after they published earnings. The stock is up 250%, and it finished today 223.87, and that was up 15.79 or 7.6%. Last night after the earnings, it actually had gone from about excuse me, about 211 on the high, down to 197 on the low, and finished within a quarter of where it had stopped trading before the news. I have the chart here again of the US dollar, and I know that it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but here's the deal. The Forex market is the biggest market in the world. That's currencies. The bond market is the second biggest, and the stock market is the smallest. The stock market is much more subject to being manipulated by the government, the Fed, the Treasury. But the one thing that they can't do is they can try and talk up the dollar or talk down the dollar. But when it comes to international settlements with foreign countries, the dollar is the issue. As you can see, we barely touched 100%, which would be parity, back here about 2 weeks ago. It took 3 days for it to get to 99. It went sideways for a day or two, and then took 3 days to go through 98. And now we are just barely above 97. This does not bode well for us as a country. The bonds were a little bit better. The gold was down. I want to show you the gold chart because I think that bears some looking at, especially since I canceled the 50% down rule execution this morning because we opened, excuse me, so far through it. What I really want to show you is that every time we have one of these big sell-offs, and there are several in this chart, what you'll see is that we get back to areas of support. And the area of support here is right around 1680, 1690. We looked like we were breaking out yesterday, and we didn't. We turned and fell hard, and then this morning opened lower and fell even harder, finishing down $29.20 with a low of 1690. There's your 1690 line. We bounced up and closed a couple of dollars over that, around 1704, and I am fully expecting to see a bounce back to the upside over here. One last item, actually two last items. One was that Tyson, the chicken and meat company, was indicted today on price fixing charges. It doesn't mean that they'll be, they'll be prosecuted. Doesn't mean that they'll lose. But Tyson closed at $60.10 and was down $2.88. So a fairly impressive move there. And as I said before, on the China possible banning of their flights, airlines were tending to be up, as I said, Boeing especially. But also in the mall business, we've had several reports in the last 2 days about the number of rents that are actually being paid. SL Green yesterday came out with a number of about 82, I believe. Today we had another one come out with payments of 90% of the rents. And we had several malls that would be classified as A malls, primarily Simon property malls. They don't tend to have a Sears at one end and a J.C. Penney at another. and maybe a Walmart on the third. Uh, and so there is a merger that may come into question now between Simon Malls and Tubman, but they were actually both up today. Simon Malls closed 77.88, up $9.35, and that was pretty decent. And Tubman was about unchanged, or up about maybe 2%. Tanger Outlets, which is maybe not an A, possibly a B, and those are open air malls, finished the day 741, up 0.73 cents, or 11%. So it seems as if there are bits and pieces of good news around, uh, but I personally still can't get over the fact that big places like California and Texas, which had limited openings in the last 2 weeks, are now reporting the highest one-day spikes in uh, new cases of COVID-19. And frankly, I don't really think that that's such great news. Have a good evening. I'll be back in the morning.